Now with the fairing back on, I'm using all of the oil in that container, that is exactly 3.8 litres, to top up the engine. And with the old oil, I'll throw it down the drain. Morning guys, Sunday morning. We're going to do an oil and filter change on the Z1000 SX. It's a 2015 model, so it might vary slightly for other models of the Z1000, but in principle this is the same on all bikes. Whether you do an oil change and filter change, a lot of the stuff will be pretty much the same. So just going over the tools that we're going to need. We're going to need a small flat-headed screwdriver. We're going to need a H5, either Allen key or hex bolt with the adapter, H6 and a H7. We're then going to need a 17mm, I think it's an M12 if you have that, either spanner or socket set. Going to need the oil filter with the washer. This is the crush washer. Going to need something to put the oil in, preferably if you've got a mesh funnel, that would be good. And we're going to need 3.8 litres or 4 quarts of 1040 SAE engine oil. Then we're going to need something to drain it into, and for me, I make it easier for myself and I use a paddock stand to put the bike on as well. Fairing removal, straightforward. We've got 2 pins. We've got one here and one underneath, so we need the flat-headed screwdriver in there. We're just going to pop that off and that will come out. Might be a little bit more tough if you've got a rad guard in place, but we do the same for underneath as well. You should, if you've done it for a while, you should just be able to feel with your hands where they are. Use the corner of the screwdriver just to poke that in. That's one. One here. There's one here. And then we should be good. Should then be able to just pull these out. There's the 3 rivets. The way these work, if you haven't seen it before, you push the top in and it allows it to disconnect. When you want to push the rivet back in, you have that protruding, and then you put it in place and you pop it in to click it. Now I need to take the fairing off. Next you're going to need your H4. You've got one each side here and one each side here. So best thing to do is pop the windshield up in utmost position and then release those 4 bolts. Once you've got those 4 bolts off, you should just be able to pop this out. Mine's a bit stiff because I have carbon wrapped the part behind it, so the top bit is a little bit on the stiff side, but you can just ease it out like this. You will need to disconnect your USB charger if you've got one, or any other accessories you've got in there, and then it will just slip straight out. So the DJI Mic 2 decided to stop working, so we need to go through this manually with a voiceover, unfortunately. So to take the fairing off, we're going to take off this top bolt first of all, and then we're going to remove these other 2 bolts down the bottom here. Next you want to, starting from the bottom, work your way around and pop out these little push poppers. I don't know what they're called. Once you've done that, get these wires out the way, you can unhinge. There's 2 little brackets here which are kind of like a hooks into holes. Now the way you need to do this is you need to push them out towards the back of the bike from the fairing. So we can lift it slightly, push, and then we can just unhook it. A lot of people have problems with this when they first start. Then we undo, disconnect the indicator, and we're good to go.
So now we have clear visibility of not only the oil filter but also the sump nut plug as well. Now there's going to be some people that say, oh, you don't have to take the fairing off. I know you don't have to take the fairing off. You can detach it from the bottom and use a piece of wood or something to push the fairing apart and then get under the bike and then take the oil filter out and drain the oil. But I like to take the fairings off. Saves stretching them, saves potentially breaking something, and also gives me a chance to inspect anything underneath the fairing as well. So as we're getting towards the end of the oil flow that's coming out of the engine here, we want to go around and we're going to open the oil filler cap. If it's a little bit stiff, usually is, just get yourself a pair of mole grips and like a microfiber cloth or something like that, just to turn it. Don't grip it too hard or anything like that, just turn it, release it. That increases the airflow and makes the flow of the oil coming out of the sump nut a little bit easier. So when it comes to taking the oil filter off, if it's been put on right, it shouldn't be so tight that you can't undo it with your hand. Worst case scenario, get yourself a marigold glove or something like that, give yourself a bit more grip, and then you should be able to loosen it by hand. If you can't do that, I'd recommend a chain wrench to remove the oil filter. Now we get to the maths part of the video. We have this 4 litre brand new sealed container of oil, and we have this 1 litre with only a little bit left in it. Now it's easier for me to pour out the 200 millilitres that we don't need in that 4 litre can, and then we have the exact amount that we want to put back in the engine. So to do that, it's fairly easy. We have 300 millilitres in this can. We can see that by the marking. I say can, I mean plastic bottle, container, whatever you want to call it. All we need to do is pour some oil in there until it gets to 500 millilitres. Then we know we have 3.8 left in our main container. Now this does go in very slowly because it does have that mesh inside of the funnel.
That's what she said.
If you're working with new oil, you probably don't need that. But if you're replacing fluid, taking it out and then putting it back in again, it's always worth having the mesh in. So now we need our new oil filter, our crusher washer. We don't need the old oil filter and we don't need the crusher washer, but we do need to retain the sump bolt. Now we're going to put the new oil filter on. Different methods of doing this. Some people fill it to the brim with oil before putting it on. Some people leave it empty and other people fill it partial. I'm a partial kind of guy. And the reason I do it like this is because if I don't put any oil in there, then I think it's going to be harder to get the airlocks out of the oil. If I fill it to the brim, I'm likely to be spilling it all over the place when I'm trying to screw the oil filter back on. So I partially fill it and I use some of that overflow to rub round the O-ring to make sure I get a nice tight seal. Hand tight is all you need here. You don't need any special tools or anything like that. Just nice and tight with a hand, that's good enough. Oil filter's back on. Now we need to put the sump nut in. We're using an aluminium crush washer. You can get copper ones and you can get other materials. This one's aluminium. You don't need to rub oil in it, just straight in. Tighten up with a 17mm or an M12. All done, and now it's time for me to put the fairing back on. Now with the fairing back on, I'm using all of the oil in that container. That's exactly 3.8 litres to top up the engine. And with the old oil, I'll throw it down the drain. Joking, joking.
Okay, so we've covered up the drain just in case, and I've put some paper down there, and then we want to be pouring this into our container. Oh Jesus, this is why we cover up the drain, so we can catch any of that. But you do not want to be pouring this down the drain. You need to put it back in a container and take it to the local refuge site. Have a look on your council website, because they might even collect it, you never know. One last trick, because you can't really accurately take the oil level when it's on a rear paddock stand, unless you're on a front paddock stand as well. I've built this little piece of chock of wood, which is about 2 inches. It's about the height that you need. That basically stand slips into there, that goes on the floor, and that will hold your bike level. Don't keep it like this, because if a wind blows, that bike will go over. It's only to measure your level, and make sure you're keeping one hand on the bike at all times. I don't want to be responsible for you dropping your bike because you followed something Pinnacle Moco said with a bit of wood. So just be real careful, yeah. So coming off the paddock stand, I'm always going to have the front wheel stabilised, side stand down at all times, one hand on the bike, one hand on here. Push down on this so it goes down very slowly. Start pulling now this side over, and then release, and it will drop down and you're good. Then to put this in, very simple. You literally just lift the bike up one hand and we can slide that under. That sits in there, this way around, like that. Keeping one hand on the bike, as I mentioned. It is stable. I mean, I'm going to let go just to show you that it is stable. Then you can come down and you can check your oil level there, and you can see that the oil level, can you see from there? Probably not. I'm going to hold the bike with one hand just in case. You can see now the oil level very clearly. It's exactly where it should be. And that is the end of the oil change. Hopefully it's been useful, and I will see you later on.